see if we got Mr. Glover. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back. Happy New Year and welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for January the 5th. Everyone is present. I believe Mr. Glover is on the telephone. Is that right, Chris? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The first item on our agenda for today's meeting is to review the items on the agenda for our January 9th regular council meeting. So if you could please refer to that agenda. First few items are just getting the meeting started and then various liquor license applications. There are various purchase contracts under agenda item 4. Yes, Mr. Brady.
We're going to need to pull item 4G, please.
Okay. Item 4G is being taken off the agenda. Moving on to item 5, there's various resolutions. Yes, Mr. Thompson.
Chris, can you or someone talk about item 5D, I believe it is, on the light rail with the eminent domain?
Sure. Why don't I invite the city attorney and maybe Kim Fallback to give you some background on this item.
Mayor, council, and as Kim's coming up, maybe I'll start off. We haven't gone for a condemnation order for a few years. In fact, the last time was the Central Mesa extension of the light rail. And when we came here at that time, we said that we were requesting the authorization for condemnation, but we would seek to continue to negotiate an amicable resolution for the acquisition of all those properties. And in fact, and I'll tout Kim Fallback and her group because she's pretty humble. In fact, Kim Fallback and their group were able to amicably resolve all of those acquisitions. We did not go to trial on any of those properties. In fact, I don't even think we went on to mediation on any of those properties. And so we were able to either close through escrow or close through the condemnation process. And I'll tell you actually why sometimes actually the property owner actually wants us to close through the condemnation process. And so we're here again several years later, and we're doing obviously the extension of the light rail project and asking for basically the same resolution and authorization for condemnation. And the process that Kim and her group and my office work together is that the real estate group goes out and negotiates with the property owner and tries to seek a resolution on the acquisition. Sometimes for a number of reasons we're not able to acquire the property fast enough, and that's why we go to the condemnation for what's called the order of immediate possession. That allows for the project to proceed, but then we're also still negotiating the price, and we continue to negotiate the price even after we get that order of immediate possession. And like I said, on the last project we were able to negotiate the price on every single one of those acquisitions. And I mentioned why sometimes the property owner actually wants us to proceed through condemnation. Actually, on a number of properties there's a number of encumbrances, and you see this especially in some older parts of Mesa, in which the property has encumbrances. Sometimes it's tax assessments, judgments. We actually saw a U.S. judgment on a piece of property, which was rather unique. And so the title company actually can't close through escrow. So the property owner we've agreed on the price, but the escrow company actually has more difficulty closing. So the property owner and the city of Mesa agreed to actually close through the court. It's almost like a mini quiet title action on that little piece of property. And so we actually used the condemnation process with the property owner in order to get the money that way. And so not only many times is it amicable, it's actually the only way to actually close on the property. And so that's what we're doing here again. And I don't know if I've already said everything for Kim. I spoke too much. That's the problem when I speak first. So.
Good presentation, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, are you not? Mr. Kavanaugh, then Mr. Luna. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to follow up for those who were not here in 2013 when we did this. As part of the Metro Rail's project, this is something that is very standard, and we do it so that we don't delay the projects. Oftentimes we've got to get in and work on things, and we want to be able to acquire that strip or little parcel, whatever it is, to work on it. Otherwise, we run the risk of delays in construction. And delays almost always mean increases in price, and so this is a very common procedure all along the light rail line in all the cities that have done it. And certainly, we've had a good we really have had a wonderful staff with great outcomes all along the property, because many times we're just taking parts of properties to ensure we have enough for the rail. But this is something that is very standard, and our staff has handled it really very well.
Thank you. Mr. Luna?
I just had a question relative to, have you had any resistance? Did you have any resistance in the central corridor? I know that we've already gone through the process, and currently we're working from Mesa Drive to the Gilbert Extension. What are you doing in terms of negotiating with some of those property owners that may not feel comfortable or not sure? What are you doing relative to that?
So part of the federal process, we have to get an appraisal and then have it reviewed by an appraiser, and then an offer's made. If they think the offer's too low, we ask them to provide some support of why they feel our offer is, and we have an appraisal, we have another appraiser reviewing it. A lot of times they get their own appraisal, and then we negotiate, and we typically settle at administrative settlement. Those ones that were just too far apart, that's when we go through the eminent domain process. And then we on Central Mesa, we had 10 that did do that, and we were successful in settling all of them without mediation and without jury trial.
So if you one way to think about eminent domain kind of conjures a lot of images, but I don't think there's any debate necessarily about the public necessity for the acquisition. But what this does, what Kim just explained, it kind of gives us kind of a third-party opportunity to review the determination of value after, at that point, multiple appraisals have been done and we're still not able to close the gap. It then allows kind of a third-party possibility to come in and also make a determination. So I think it tries to help make this as fair as possible and reasonable in determining the price for the land that's being acquired. And at this point, Kim, as we've talked to most of these property owners, they know this is coming. This is not a surprise. They understand that. I don't think the discussion right now is whether or not this is a valid public purpose. It's really just trying to determine what is the reasonable value of the property that we're trying to acquire. And this allows us to do that process while at the same time, as City Attorney mentioned, get immediate possession so we don't slow down the project.
Great. Makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Kim. That was agenda item 5D, so it sounds, I think that's going to stay on the consent agenda unless I hear otherwise. Under agenda item 5F, it might be good for us to hear a little presentation on that too, Mr. Brady. This is the city's annual CAFR, or Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
So
Would you like-
let's invite, is Irma here? Irma, why don't you come on up? And Mike, you can provide moral support and just make it look good while you're up here. Well, Irma, why don't you explain the process and the findings from the auditor, just the summary of that. Just kind of explain the process that you and your staff go through and the process from the auditor. Now, I believe we have the auditors. Are they here today too?
Yes.
So just so you know, they're here also.
Thank you.
And why don't you kind of just walk through that process and what we ended up with in the opinions on this audit?
Instead of doing the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So the process for us starts in April, usually, when we start reviewing all the funds and looking at the revenues and expenditures and our balance sheet accounts and determining whether everything's recorded in the right spots and making any adjustments that we need to. We continue then going through into July when we are accruing. So we're looking at invoices that were paid in July but belong in June and making all those accruals. Same thing with revenues, anything that was received in July that belongs in June. So we spend a lot of time making what we call GAAP adjustments so that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. They're not a budget-based financial statements. And around that same time frame, we have our auditors, Clifton Larson Allen. Sandy Cromstone is the partner, and she's here today. They come in and they start doing some testing. They test samples, and they do a lot of testing. When we go through and they review the financial statements to determine whether they're materially correct. Through that process, if they identify any adjustments that we missed, they would recommend some adjustments. Through that process, if they identify some recommendations, either material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or internal controls deficiencies, they would recommend some changes. This year, we did not have any material weaknesses. We didn't have any single audit findings. We didn't have any financial statement material findings, which is huge for us because in the prior years we've had different findings along the way. So that was a lot of good work on our staff that did a lot of changes and improvements throughout the year. And at the end, they issue an opinion for us. A clean opinion is an unmodified report that basically says they went through their process and they did their testing, and in their opinion, everything's materially correct.
So Mayor and Council, we've provided you some summary information, financial information. If you have any questions on that, we'll be glad to answer it. But I think the most important thing is that the audit was completed. We appreciate the work of our outside auditors, and really remarkably, Irma now has, I think this is kind of her full cycle, working with the staff and now getting an unmodified report, a clean audit is a great accomplishment. We appreciate her and her staff putting that work together.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Just a comment, for almost the last 6 years, I've had the quote privilege to be on the audit committee for National League of Cities. And unfortunately, what I thought was going to be a dull, easy, simple job didn't turn out quite that way. And it's a nonprofit entity, but comprised of many governmental members. And with, again, many of the changes that have occurred over the past 6 years, it's really important to have a good audit team, good, solid financial staff to work on getting clean audits. Because I've had to live through termination of auditors and hiring new auditors and reports coming back that have comments and amendments to annual financial reports and things like that. And it's really a breath of fresh air and a testament to the great work that you and your staff do, as well as the wonderful accounting firm that we've had that has a great reputation. So I just want to, the contrast is really strong. And so again, I want to compliment you for the great work that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was anxious to have just a short presentation just because it is noteworthy that this is timely and it's clean and there's no material findings. That is not a given in a city our size and with our budget. I think it's actually unusual. So I just wanted to compliment Irma, Mike, Mr. Brady, everyone involved. Hopefully the public is paying attention and feels good about the way that we're accounting for and handling their finances. So my compliments. Thank you for a job well done.
Thank you.
You bet. Council, any other questions on this item? Thank you very much. So this will, again, remain on the consent agenda for Monday's meeting. I'm sorry, yes, agenda item 6? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we're now on agenda item 6, considering various ordinances. And 7 is taking public comment on some items. And 8 is reviewing a subdivision plat. So I think everything's on the consent. Does that sound okay to everybody? Thank you. The next item on our agenda for today's meeting, item 2, is appointments to the Economic Development and Human Relations Advisory Board. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Mr. Luna, second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. Next item, item 3, is information regarding job order contracting projects. Mr. Luna.
I was wondering if I can get Beth and Dan to give us a brief explanation on number 3 on job order projects.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Dan Clevenger from Water Resources and Beth Huning from Engineering. You have 4 items on your JOC list this morning. The third one is a rehab project for a lift station up in Las Endas. We've got about, I think, 16 lift stations spread throughout the city. It's critical infrastructure for our sanitary sewer system to have it work properly. This one was built in the 90s with the development up there. And it's somewhat sensitive because we've, due to the proximity of a couple of residences in the area. Beth's got a few details on what the project entails.
Yeah, this project is primarily an equipment makeover project. We're going to go ahead and replace the pumps. There's a lot of stuff that's reached the end of its useful life, upgrading the remote monitoring. But also, we want to be a good neighbor, so we're putting in a new odor control system. We're replacing the generator with a natural gas generator, which is much quieter and should be better for the area. And we have some site security issues. Plus, the neighborhood has expressed concern about the way we access the lift stations. So a few months ago, we worked with flood control and got their agreement, because it's tucked up against the CAP canal and the flood control right away. We got their concurrence to build a road, which we did, to access it from the west side. So we'll be modifying the fence to be able to make those accesses from the west side not go through the neighborhood to get to it.
I just want to thank you for working with the neighbors there to try to mitigate any potential problems. So I appreciate your work there, and just keep us updated in terms of what's going on.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding job order contracting projects? If not, the next item is item 4, acknowledge receipt of minutes of various boards and committees. Is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Richens, and a second? Thank you, Mr. Finter. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I'm sorry. I assume you've been voting aye.
I have.
Was there a question? Okay, thank you very much. That motion passes then. Item 4, yeah, the voice of God apparently agrees with us. Item 5, here reports on meetings and conferences attended. Council, I think we've all enjoyed some time at home with our families the last week or two, so I'd be surprised if anyone's at conferences. Next item is scheduling of meetings and general information. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next council meeting will be Monday, January 9th. And then on the following day, Tuesday, January 10th, we will have our farewell to some of our council members and colleagues here. So that will begin at 4 p.m. on the 10th. So next council meeting is January 9th.
Great. And on the 10th at 4 p.m., just in case folks want to attend that, remind me where that's going to be?
It will be at the Mesa Arts Center on the Aikida stage.
Okay. And then on the 12th, when we swear in our new council members, that's, in case the public wants to attend that, that's 7 p.m., 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. Doors open at 5:30.
Okay.
Program starts at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Again, Mesa Arts Center, but this
Great.
time it'll be in the Piper. But it will be held in the Piper Theater.
Gotcha. Okay, well,
No study next Thursday.
Oh, yes. No study on the January 12th. That is correct.
right, next Thursday, there's an event.
We'll be
that
doing
we're
the
attending.
swearing in that evening, so we will not have a study session
Okay.
that morning.
All right, and I think there's also a breakfast involving, the governor, yeah.
Oh, right, on
Yeah.
the 12th?
Okay, great. All right, well, is there, council, any other questions or items for this meeting? If not, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, both you guys. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Finner, both think we ought to adjourn, and I agree with them. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, we are adjourned.